Members, good afternoon. It's the appointed time and we have a quorum. I call to order the meeting of the panel on environmental affairs. The agenda has been set out in Annex 2. Agenda item number 1, information paper issued since the last meeting. The Secretariat issued 2 sets of papers since the last meeting. The details have been set out in the agenda. There are some members who have written in and their submissions have been tabled before members. Actually, Mr. Michael TIEN submitted a letter dated 27th of February 2024 regarding the power supply incidents of CLP Power Hong Kong Limited. I discussed with Mr. TIEN regarding the matter. In Yunlong, there's another power supply incident, and we agreed to discuss the 2 incidents together. The relevant power companies will be proposing an item to this panel by end this year. Their report to be discussed in that panel or meeting would be rather long, and the CLP will be submitting a report to the EMSD in April. So I propose that we discuss the item in the meeting in May. Any comment? If there's none, then I will talk to the administration about this, and I think that we can only discuss the item in May, the earliest. Mr. TIEN. Chairman, do you mean that if we don't discuss the incident in Yunlong together, then we can discuss the item in April? I think that I would agree with your arrangement to have the item discussed in May. Now, items for discussion at the next meeting. The next meeting will be scheduled on the 22nd of April 2024 at 2:30 p.m. There are 2 items for discussion, including conversion of petrol filling stations into quick charging stations, petrol cum charging stations, and the Robin's Nest Country Park. Do members agree with the arrangement? There being no comment, now let's move on to the next agenda item, progress update on the implementation of municipal solid waste charging, MSW charging. Let's invite the administration to come in. With us today from the government are Mr. Che Chin-wan, Secretary for Environment and Ecology, Dr. Samuel Choi, Director of Environmental Protection, Mr. Fong Kim-wah, Deputy Director of Environmental Protection, Mr. Bruno Look, Deputy Director of Environmental Protection, Waste Reduction, Ms. Teresa Wu, Assistant Director, and Ms. Joanne Yong, Acting Assistant Director of the EPD. Mr. TIEN? I see that you have all pressed the button. I can read out the order first. Mr. Michael TIEN, Dr. Lo Wai Kok, Mr. Andrew Lam, Mr. Holden Chow, Mr. Chen Xiu Hong, Deputy Chairman, Mr. Edward Lam, Ms. Judy Chen, Mr. Robert Lee, Dr. Hui Simon Lee, Mr. Chu Kwok Kun, Mr. Stephen Ho, and Ms. Carmen Khan. Now, Mr. Chair, Secretary for Environment and Ecology, and colleagues from EPD, please. Thank you, Chairman. My team and I are to report to the panel on the demonstration scheme and the latest progress of the other preparatory work for the implementation of MSW charging. The government has taken note of the views regarding the implementation of the MSW charging in the community. We need the public support and participation in the scheme for it to be implemented smoothly. So the government accord priority and attach importance to the views of the members of the public to minimize the impact caused to the public and reduce complaints and confusions towards the scheme. We will implement a demonstration scheme to review the process and actual practices of different stakeholders including waste producers, frontline cleansing staff, waste collectors, and so on, and disposal of waste under different settings with MSW charging in place, as well as collecting their views and relevant data to be consolidated for analysis. The Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration will lead an interdepartmental steering group to oversee the overall work of the demonstration scheme and review its outcome, allowing a comprehensive understanding on the overall situation of the preparatory work for a pragmatic arrangement and handling. In January, we started the demonstration scheme. We worked with relevant bureaus and departments and the management of the residential buildings to create a framework for the operation. We have picked public and private residential buildings, 3 news buildings, shopping malls, restaurants, and residential care homes for the demonstration scheme. We have visited the relevant premises and talked to the persons in charge of the relevant premises, so that the demonstration scheme can start on the 1st of April 2024. We will be offering designated bags and labels free of charge. The MSW charging will be implemented on the 1st of August 2024. Despite having a phasing in period, we want to minimize the nuisance cost to the people. Apart from demonstration scheme, we will also conduct survey to collect views from the stakeholders and members of the public who have participated in the demonstration scheme, and we target to report to the panel in May and June regarding the demonstration scheme. Regarding the latest progress of other preparatory work, I will invite Mr. Look, Deputy Director of Environmental Protection, to walk you through the paper. We have set out the preparatory work that we have done. Regarding the stakeholder engagement, we have actually conducted over 270 meetings and briefings to connect with over 13,400 stakeholders from various sectors and organized over 120 training seminars for different premises of C&I sectors with about 13,900 participants. We have attended over 40 briefing sessions arranged by electrical members, DC members, district officers, and district personalities with over 3,200 participants. We have also conducted almost 60 training seminars for the property management sector, cleansing companies, and owners organizations with over 7,200 participants. We have also organized 3 continuous professional development seminars on the charging scheme with the Property Management Services Authority, PMSA, attracting over 1,850 property management practices. Regarding publicity and public engagement for the general public, since August last year on TV and radios, we have broadcasted APIs for over 4,000 times, and at the lobbies of residential developments and the MTR, we have broadcasted promotional videos for over 9,000 times, and we have also displayed over 4,000 banners and posters. And we also have a series of online advertisements and mobile applications. We have different plans for different target groups. We have conducted briefings to 18 district councils or the committees and care teams and distributed promotional materials. We have organized 3 briefing sessions for care teams to facilitate the promotion of MSW charging. Regarding foreign domestic helper and ethnic minorities, we have created promotional leaflets and videos in different languages, and we have also organized an English briefing. For students, in March, we rolled out a new scheme that is called We Recycle at School to encourage students to participate in the waste reduction and recycling. We have established or put in a 3-color recycling bins in about 1,000 schools in Hong Kong. We want to encourage students to bring the recyclables to school for recycling. Through the scheme of Recycle at School, we encourage students to cultivate a habit of waste reduction and recycling. We also send electronic pamphlets and leaflets to around 700,000 secondary and primary school students, and we will be distributing a 15-liter designated bags to about 30,000 students in Hong Kong. Regarding rural villages, we have set out some exhibitions at rural villages. Regarding senior citizens, we will distribute pamphlets and leaflets at the residential care homes for the elderly, and we will also promote MSW charging through radio programs targeting senior citizens. You may have noticed that we have actually launched a series of promotional videos in collaboration with influencers and owners incorporators. We want to disseminate the message to members of the public. Regarding recycling support in the community, we are expanding the scope of the Green at Community. At 50 public residential housing, we have set up a program on source separation of domestic waste, and we have also set up recycling stores. Some of the recycling spots operate from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and we can do recycling at the spots. Apart from Green at Community, we have a source separation scheme for 1,200 C&I premises and 2,700 residential developments. We offer 3-colored recycling bins, and we have 1,100 sets of curbside recycling bins at rural areas. Regarding collection of food waste, since 2021, we have launched a pilot scheme on food waste collection. Currently, we already have 900 collection spots. At 58 refuse collection points, we have set up food waste collection points, and we will increase that to 100. At restaurant clusters, we will collect food waste via mobile stations. In the second quarter this year, we will expand the program to other districts. For domestic waste, that accounts for about 70% of the total food waste generated. We are working with the housing department to install food waste recycling bins at PRH and private housing units. At 213 PRH estates, we will be installing food waste smart recycling bins. At private residential developments, we, through the recycling fund, installed food waste recycling bins. And we also have a smart food waste recycling bins in private housing estates pilot scheme. Since February, we have been installing such smart recycling bins progressively. For residential buildings without sufficient space, in September and December 2023, we have set up smart food waste recycling bins at 2 recycling stations in the vicinity of the residential areas, namely Green at Shamshipo and Green at Eastern. These include single-block residential buildings and 3 new buildings. The feedback is rather good, so we will be expanding the program to Sai Kung. At public market and refuse collection point, we will set up more food waste collection points. Chairman, so much for my presentation. Thank you very much. Now ask member to put questions, 4 minutes per member, including question and answer. Mr. Michael TIEN.
Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, at the meeting back in January, I have already pointed out that if we want to change a historical habit, it will be very difficult. Now we have to ask most of the residents in Hong Kong to do so at the same time and to pay the charge at the same time. So there will be a lot of noises from them. So I think we have to gradually change their habit before we ask them to pay the charge. So I would suggest that you try to take more action. Try to distribute 3 designated bags for 3 months, starting from August the 1st. But at that time, my proposal was rejected. You pointed out that a lot of buildings are managed by PMCs, and you are already promoting education, and the PMCs have their own way to help the citizens adapt to this MSW charging. I'm actually surprised by this, because the property management companies will not be better in public education than you. Well, if you have to distribute designated bags free for charge, and you have to pay more management fees. So I can't see the correlation between the two. But now I'm not talking about promotion. We are talking about we have to change people's habit of putting away waste before they pay the charge. So this is more a political issue. Well, for the new term of the budget, the government has estimated that the MSW charge will be about $1.8 billion. And with the distribution of 3 designated bags for 3 months, you will have $450 million less of revenue. So that means you are trying to let the citizens accustom to the MSW charging. My understanding is that you have thought about my suggestion, and you may think that it could be considered. So I know you may not give me an answer on the spot today, but I do hope that you can give me some positive response as to what you would be doing in this aspect. Whether you will give 3 dBs for 3 months or 6 months or less, please give us an understanding or another ticking at the meeting in May. Secretary. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Tien, for your question. For the past periods, we have received a lot of views from different quarters regarding MSW charging. For the implementation of this bill, we would affect everyone in Hong Kong. So we are aware of that. So there are concerns. People may be worried that difficulties may arise during the implementation period, and also how we can roll out the scheme smoothly and let people understand the scheme better and also change their habits of discarding waste. So there are issues to be addressed. Maybe there would be better ways to do so. That is the reason why we are rolling out the demonstration scheme. Through the demonstration scheme, we hope that we will be able to see what would be the different stakeholders' behavior be they PMCs or residents or frontline cleansing workers. So how would they accustom to the change? So that's why we are adopting a pragmatically approach to examine implementation through the demonstration scheme. And we will also collect views from the participants. And then also the Chief Secretary will look into the matter. Having obtained information on the general situation, we'll try to position ourselves better as regards the implementation. So after the demonstration scheme, we'll take a look and come back. Last time you rejected my proposal. Are you saying now that you would consider my proposal, that you would distribute 3 designated bags for a few months? Well, we actually have an open mind to go ahead with the demonstration scheme. So as to what practical measures that need to be taken into account, we now adopt an open position. Thank you. I think the Secretary has said that he will keep an open mind before he comes back to us in June with more statistics. Next, Dr. Loh Wai Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. Well, the purpose of the MSW charging scheme is to hope to reduce the volume of MSW, and we are trying to link a charge to the volume. That's why we make use of the designated bags. So actually, the bags are not that heavy, but the reason behind is the fee for disposing the waste. So even for the C&I sector and for the members of the public, they are already paying a charge, but maybe in a different way. But in order to reduce waste at source and to encourage recycling, that's why we want to go forward with the MSW charging. And this charging has been successfully implemented in many cities. And they make use of the way of a designated bag as well. I think the government is not trying to generate revenue through the MSW charging. I think they would want to have less revenue from that. The lesser bag we sell, that means lesser waste. So we have to do more on the aspect of recycling. I think we are not that ready at this front because right now we don't have a very convenient system for our citizens to recycle their waste. So I think the refuse or recycle collection points is one of the parameters for the success of this scheme. We now only rely on the Green and Community scheme, but I think it is inadequate. If we can do better on recycling, then we will be better. I think for metals, glass, paper, and these stuff are metals that can be recycled from households. But for food waste, if you have a food waste separation bin at your premises, you don't even have to buy a designated bag at all. So I think we should go along that direction. Come 1st of August, we have to see whether it is really suitable for us to implement the MSW charging scheme. I have a big question mark on that. I think the key is that we need to have a very comprehensive waste collection network. Can we do so by the 1st of August? If not, then I think a lot of citizens will find it very inconvenient for them to dispose of their waste, and they may have to put recyclables into the designated bag. And this actually goes against the principle of the government of implementing the MSW charging. I think we can look at the matter from another perspective. In Shek Kwu Chau, we are going to build IPAC 1. It is an integrated waste incineration scheme. It will be commenced next year. With the MSW charging, can we consider implementing it in connection with that project? We do not want the recyclables to go to the landfills. We can turn waste into resources. Then it will be a great thing. So we don't have to put our waste to the landfills. So this is just a thought. Secondly, we are now going ahead with a demonstration scheme. I can see that there are a lot of discussion in the community about this scheme, and people think that it is too small in scale. Although you have taken into account different types of premises like residential buildings and other institutions, but I think the information that you can gather on the difficulties that they face may not be adequate. Will you expand the demonstration scheme? Secretary, please be concise. The first point, we fully agree that a recycling system is very essential and important. In over 2,700 housing estates, we have already put in place recycling bins. So we are not just relying at the Green and Community Network. For housing estates without recycling bins, like the free new buildings or the single block buildings, they can make use of these recycling spots. So that's why we give out the green dollars to incentivize people to recycle waste. So right now, for some buildings, there are recycling bins installed. And we have also done a lot of work concerning food waste recycling. It is stated clearly in the paper. So I think for the demonstration scheme, we want to test that we now already have a system. So how would be people's response and what will be the effects of the MSW charging? We have already have a system in place. We want to see how people would use it in practice. We also have the project of IPAT 1, which will turn waste into energy. It's an incineration facility. The first phase will be commenced in 2025. So do we have to wait until that facility come into place before we proceed with the charging? We don't think so, because the waste that have been separated, they will be put to recycling. So we do not have to await the completion of IPAT 1. But under the current system, we want to see what will be the effect of our citizens in using them. That's why we want to roll out a demonstration scheme. And I would like to remind members that this is a very topical item. 18 members want to speak, but we have 3 agenda items for the meeting today. So 4 minutes for each member is for questions and answers. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Chairman, I think a lot of people in the community do not understand the objective of MSW charging. They just focus on the word charging. But we've been following this issue, and we know clearly the objective is to reduce waste. The Secretary has already pointed out that when we try to reduce waste, we have to be ready with the facilitating measures. I have read the paper, and we are still talking about the Green and Community Scheme Network and say that the network covers about 80% of a population. I do not know how that is calculated, but in practice, a lot of citizens do not find it convenient to use this network. It is not just a question of geographical location, but also the operating hours. So I hope the administration would rectify these issues. For some of the old districts, you don't even have space for putting the recycling bins, say for the 3 new buildings. We have talked a lot about that. This is nothing new. So I hope that you will have mobile facilities for recyclers. So maybe you have a session for people to take out their recyclables. I hope that we will do more in this aspect. Well, having heard the PowerPoint, I know that you are carrying a lot of work, but a lot of them is ongoing. But until which point in time that these facilities, recycling facilities, will be ready in place, and the administration will be confident to roll out the charging scheme? I think this is a big question. Secondly, I know that you have been trying very hard to reach out to different stakeholders, but my impression is that there are still a lot of questions which have been unanswered, and there's no follow-up. Just to share with you 2 examples. This is not a criticism. Well, some communities or some groups have use government funds to try to collect waste from the beaches. They want to know where they can buy the big plastic rubbish bags, but you cannot give them ready answers. And for some of the more practical issues, say for some of the estates, when they were first opened for people to move in, they need a lot of big rubbish bags because they have a lot of large volume wastes. So these are 2 typical examples, and I really hope that apart from the demonstration scheme, you will really address these very practical difficulties pointed out by the different groups and associations. Thank you.
Secretary, thank you, Mr. Lam, for your question. As I mentioned, Green and Community is only part of our community recycling network. At 2,700 housing estates in Hong Kong, we have a source separation program. At the lobbies of a lot of residential buildings, there are already recycling bins. So we have a very comprehensive community recycling network covering almost all population in Hong Kong. But some buildings are still not covered. That is why we have this Green Net community facility for 3 new buildings and single block buildings with no lobby. As to whether or not people think that is convenient or sufficient, we have to look into that, and that is why we have this demonstration scheme. We know that there are still questions that have not been addressed. For plastic bags for waste collection at beaches, I've said time and again that they don't need to put the waste in the designated bags because we shouldn't ask a volunteer to pay to collect waste at beaches. Currently, actually, volunteers who want to collect waste at beaches will have to apply to the AFCD for the activity. And now, after the implementation of the scheme, the AFCD will be disseminating designated bags to the volunteers who want to collect waste at beaches. Thank you. Mr. Holden Chow, I think that I will cut member off at the 4-minute mark. Thank you. Chairman. The team of the DAB has been carrying out consultation sessions with residents of different districts. And I would like to thank the administration for sending staff members to these sessions to listen from residents about their views. And I have organized a session at Yuen Long. I would like to ask about the recycling stores and the smart recycling bins for food waste. In paragraph 17 of the paper, you've set out the work that you've done to expand the number of or the coverage of food waste recycling bins. There's still room for improvement, in my opinion. We need smart food waste recycling bins. Because if we don't have that, the MSW charging scheme will not be given its full effect. I would also like to ask about green at community. The secretary said that they want to expand the facilities to all districts in Hong Kong. But actually, the green at community facilities have replaced a lot of recycling bins at street that caused inconvenience to residents. They think that we should have both recycling bins at street and green at community facilities. I think that we need both curbside collection bins and green at community facilities. We need sufficient facilities for the scheme to give full play to its effect. If not, we will not be able to see results with much effort being dedicated. So these are my two questions: smart food recycling bins and the recycling bins at curbside. Thank you. Chairman, Secretary, please. Thank you. Regarding the food waste recycling bins, as set out in the paper, we are stepping up effort in this regard. We will be setting up food waste recycling bins at all PRH estates, and we welcome applications from private residential developments. We will try to lower the threshold for private developments to apply for recycling bins. As mentioned, in 2,700 housing estates, we already have food waste recycling bins, and we will try to expand the coverage. For Green at Community, we will continue to expand this network, but actually the Green at Community facilities are not to replace the recycling bins at curbside. We only provide such facilities when for those buildings who do not have recycling bins placed at their lobbies. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chan Xiu Hong, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I would like to commend the Secretary for Environment and Ecology, because on different occasions, as well as in the paper, we can see that the Secretary is very determined in implementing the MSW charging scheme, be it on the 1st of August or the 1st of April. I see that the Secretary is serious about the implementation of the scheme. And I think that he is very determined to carry out the scheme. We're not talking about if we should implement the scheme or not, but how to do it in the best way possible. In the paper, you said that you want to reduce waste and recycle more and dump less. As mentioned by a number of members, if we want to achieve this goal, we should not focus on the price of the designated bags. We want to encourage people to dump as little waste as possible. The price of the designated bags is not important. We want to discourage people from dumping waste. If we don't have enough recycling network, then our goal cannot be achieved. I actually agree with what the Secretary said, that we should not wait until we have perfected our recycling network before we implement the MSW charging scheme. This is a scheme to change the habit of people. But the demonstration scheme is rather small in scale, and I don't think that you will have sufficient data in the coming 2 months for you to improve the scheme, because you have only selected 1,000 households. For 3 new buildings, you have selected 2 of them. For residential care homes for the elderly, you've only selected 2 of them. For the 2,000-odd recycling bins at the PRH estates, they will be sufficient, but I think that people who would be making complaints after the implementation of the scheme would be the ones living in the 3 new buildings, because they don't have sufficient recycling facilities nearby. Will you ignore their views, or will you expand the scope of your demonstration scheme? Because we can already foresee problems with people living in 3 new buildings because they don't have enough facilities. I think that by that you will be able to have more data for analysis. According to paragraph 9 of the paper, you mentioned that you have set up a customer service center and a dedicated hotline, and you have received 13,000 inquiries. You have not set out the nature of the inquiries in the paper. I wonder what people were asking. Are they asking about the workflow of the recycling or the scheme? Please be brief, Secretary. Regarding the content of the inquiries, I will ask my colleague to answer the question. You ask about the scope of the demonstration scheme and if it's too, well, if the sample size is too small. Some cleansing workers are worried about waste separation, and people don't know how to use the designated bags. We think that we can solve these technical issues. But regarding whether or not people find it convenient to dispose of waste with the existing system and network, we will have to see during the demonstration scheme, and we have to examine the problems that may arise, and these are not the things that we can foresee. That is why we have engaged a dedicated team to oversee the scheme and actually review the feedback from the participants of the scheme. After the scheme, we will see if we need to review the process and plan for the implementation. We are determined to implement the scheme, but we have to be cautious about the implementation. We need to actually look at the feedback and sentiment of the people, and after the scheme, we will review the process. For the inquiries, in the interest of time, perhaps the administration can supplement in writing after the meeting. Next, Mr. Edward Leung. Thank you, Chairman. I know that under the demonstration scheme, there will be free distribution of designated bags and you will collect statistics. But you have not talked about what is the passing criteria for the demonstration scheme. Under what circumstances would we not implement the MSW charging scheme? In case the demonstration scheme fail, I don't think that the administration should be too worried if we are to implement the MSW charging scheme on the 1st of August 2024. I think that we are prepared. During the COVID, the administration focused on combating the epidemic. I think that if we have to delay it, people will understand. I think that we have to implement the scheme in a progressive manner. So I have a few questions. First, how do you assess the scheme, and if we have to postpone the implementation date, under what circumstances would we do that? Thank you. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Leung, for your question. For the demonstration scheme, well, we will review and collect views and statistics from participants. We will look at the participation rate and if the volume of waste collected would drop and if there will be increase in the volume of recyclables. These are the figures and data that we will collect. But as mentioned in the paper, we want to focus on the problems that may arise during the demonstration scheme, and we want to look at the comments and views from the participants. We want to solve the problems that may arise during the implementation of the scheme that we may not be able to foresee. Perhaps we do not have sufficient supporting facilities. These are not data that can be quantified. I think that we will look at the problems that may arise and the feedback from the participants before we finalize our workflow for the implementation of the MSW charging scheme. You ask under what circumstances we will postpone the implementation date. As we have not started with the demonstration scheme yet, we should not be thinking about if we should postpone it before the start of the demonstration scheme. We should look at the result of the scheme first before we plan for the implementation of the MSW charging scheme. As mentioned in the paper, a number of government departments are involved. For example, Home and Youth Affairs Bureau will be collecting views as well. The Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration will engage different departments before we come up with a finalized plan. Thank you. Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, Chairman. We hope to see a smooth implementation of the MSW charging scheme, but a number of challenges have arisen. As mentioned by the Secretary, there are 2,700 housing developments with recycling facilities in place, including food waste recycling bins. These housing developments with property management companies want to install smart food waste recycling bins. Sometimes there could be disputes from the residents, or some developments could not identify enough space for the installation of the bins. Why should we not install a smart food waste recycling bins at the green at community facilities in all of the districts? Because there is not a green dollar reward functions at the smart food waste collection or recycling bins at the bins installed at the residential developments.
到咧而家6
Secondly, it is also stated in the paper that now there are actually 500,000 registered accounts for the greener community facility. So if there is one member of a household which is a member, that means we have about 2 million households. So only about 1/5 of the households have registered for the greener community scheme. So there are about 4/5 of the households which have not been registered yet. So how can you incentivize them to register as an account with the greener community scheme? Maybe they want to do so, but there is just no urge for them to do so. Or maybe they don't understand too much about the greener community scheme. So if you want to be pragmatic, maybe you give them some designated bags as a gift for opening a registered account. Then you can incentivize more households to come forward and become a member of the greener community. 2 more issues, quick ones. For the Islands District, I do not have a very clear answer. I know that for the rural areas, they have some of the facilities, but I'm not sure about the provision of such facilities for the islands. Lastly, my question is, why do we have to call it an MSW charging? This gives people the impression that you're charging me money. Can you say that it is a waste reduction scheme? This is a suggestion. Secretary, well, on the naming of the scheme, thank you, Ms. Judy Chen, for your suggestion. We will try to look into it as to how we can brand our scheme better. Well, for the Islands District, I will ask my colleagues to supplement. For RCPs, the question is whether we can put more food waste smart recycling bins there. Of course, we can do so, but we hope that we can have more large-scale recycling facilities at the RCPs. And we want to have the food waste transmuters installed there. So it will be some pre-treatment for the waste. It is a food waste pre-treatment system. So we want to make better use of the space at the RCPs. You also asked whether we can incentivize people to join the greener community scheme. Well, this is a promotion activity, and we really hope that for the 2,700 housing estates, they will be the main efforts for handling recyclables, and we want to expand that scheme. And we hope that people will try to put more recyclables in the separation schemes. About the Islands District, thank you, Chair. Well, there are now 2 facilities. We have a scheme called Green at Dongchong or Green at the Islands District. This is actually another one called Green at Mui Wo. It is a recycling station, so it will cover all the households in the Islands District. For the new territories, we have 1,100 recycling bins at the street level. So we will keep these 1,100 recycling bins at curbside. Next, Mr. Robley. Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank the administrations for keeping us informed of the latest situation. Well, this scheme affects everyone in Hong Kong. I know that you have conducted a lot of promotion and publicity, but for the trades and the citizens that I come across, there are still issues that they don't understand. I think for the first question is that everyone should try to disseminate this information or message. So have you approached the chambers of commerce or the commerce and industry sector so that they can try to help spread the message to the households so that everyone will be aware of the message? Secondly, I have a question. I think the root of the issue is that for a lot of companies, say during Mid-Autumn Festival or Christmas, they have a lot of gift boxes, and these are very environmental. I actually have received a video. During Chinese New Year, he has received a gift box which contain many gift boxes inside, and they are actually only containing about 10 red packets. So that means he will be receiving a lot of these gift boxes which generate a lot of waste. So can we have more simple packaging for these gifts? Can we approach the companies and the producers, because this is a common issue? Also, some citizens have reflected to me that they are trying very hard to separate their waste, but by the end of the day, maybe the PMC is not doing so well because they put all the general waste and the recyclables together. So they feel very frustrated because they try to separate the waste, but by the end of the day, they all end up at the same point. So when you hear such criticisms, how would you respond? Are you going to take enforcement actions against the operators? Thank you, Secretary. Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. We have approached the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations, especially the property management companies. For example, for the building that I live in, there are a lot of promotion videos and pamphlets being distributed to the dwellers there. So we would continue to try to step up promotion in conjunction with the other organizations. On the packaging of gifts, I can see that for other citizens, why do they promote MSW charging? The reason is that if you have such a charge, then they will try to simplify the packaging and reduce waste. They will be more conscious. So that's why they will try to pick on gifts with less wrapping, or maybe some of the loose items. For example, now we have refillable washing powder and washing liquid as well. So we hope that with the implementation of MSW charging, people will gradually change their waste disposal behavior, and the same for consumers. You pointed out that for some residents, the frontline cleaners will try to put the recyclables and the general waste together. If we come across such situation, we will try to take action, and we will try to follow up with the PMC concerned to say that that should not be done. But for the long term, we hope that we will be able to, through our contractors, try to work with the PMCs, because they do not have a company downstream to receive the recyclables. So the cleansing company, for the sake of convenience, may just mix them together with the municipal waste and dump in the landfills. So we will try to connect them with the recyclers downstream so as to reduce the problem. And we welcome these PMCs to come forward to us. We will connect you with the recyclers so that the waste will be really separated from the recyclables. Next, Mr. Ji Kwok-hang. Thank you, Chairman. If we really want to roll out the charging scheme on the 1st of August, I think it is necessary to have a demonstration scheme beforehand. Through the demonstration scheme, we'll be able to identify problems, try to address them, and prevent problems. And then the scheme will be rolled out more smoothly. But for the 14 premises under the scheme have not included SMEs. For the scheme at the schools, you are going to distribute designated bags to the students. You only use the schools as a platform for promotion and not a place for implementation. So why don't you make good use of the schools? So will there be another batch of premises under the demonstration scheme? Can you include the schools and the universities as well? I think for the industry and the trade, they are concerned about the implementation of the charging scheme because there is lack of resources and facilitation facilities. So they have a lot of questions and they have concerns. So have you been liaising with the Education Bureau? So far, the Education Bureau has not issued one circular to the schools on the MSW charging scheme and what will be the support provided to the schools. So when are you going to collaborate with Education Bureau and to issue a circular to the schools on the MSW charging scheme? A lot of the schools are concerned. So I'll quote you one example. For the kindergartens, they have a lot of waste like diapers, which is heavy and large in volume. It is difficult to operate kindergartens now. If they have to pay for the disposal of such waste, would you give them more resources? Secretary. Well, for the secondary and primary schools, we have been working together with the Education Bureau and the other institutions. I think for schools, mostly the things that they have to deal with are lunch boxes. For primary schools, for the lunchbox suppliers, under the current arrangements, they will take back the lunch boxes, so it should not be a very big problem. But for secondary schools, I think the difficulty may be bigger because the volume generated at schools should not be that much. So we can discuss with them separately. And we will try to use a demonstration scheme to address their concern. For the next batch of premises, of course, we can consider including the school premises. But now we try to include those in the first batch which are more complicated and they have more issues to be addressed. And I think it is more challenging for them to deal with MSW charging. Maybe I'll ask my colleague to supplement on the education sector. We have been liaising with the Education Bureau. For the schools, we have given the school principals briefings on the implementation of the MSW charging scheme. We have listened to their views, and we will seriously consider their views as to how they can handle waste at schools. Thank you, Chairman. So the Bureau should actually work together. We want to work with you too, but there is not even one circular issue to the schools, so please liaise closely with Education Bureau quickly. So, Secretary, please refer this to the Education Bureau. Next, Mr. Stephen Ho. Chairman, I hope very much that the Secretary will be able to roll out the scheme successfully. For the DAB, we have been saying that the government is taking a difficult path because you're trying to change people's waste disposal behavior. So during the passage of the relevant ordinance, we have suggested that maybe you should use a stick and carrot approach. So if they reduce the volume of waste, maybe you can give them some rewards or incentive. So you should consider this so as to encourage citizens to reduce their expenditure because of the charging scheme. Also, I think the government should review their promotion activities. For the promotion of the scheme, you can state it very clearly. You can state the objective very clearly. You can say that you can keep your lifestyle, but you have to pay more. If you want to save money, then dump less. So this is a very clear message and simple message. But for your promotion activities, I was riding on a ferry in October. You used that TV character, Miss Kwan, as a spokeswoman. But you are saying that if you put the waste in the wrong place, the penalty is $1,500. So the focus immediately go to the penalty amount. I think the administration is actually progressing. You have been liaising with the fisheries and agriculture industry, and you have been trying to find ways to promote the matter. But it is not stated in the paper this time. But my main worry is that if you start on the wrong step, then they may feel that they may not be able to do it under the new charging scheme, and they will face a penalty. So I think please think of new ways to promote the scheme. I also agree with my colleague, Mr. Robert Lee, that we should focus on the producer responsibility scheme. He has quoted one example. I actually have another. The moon cakes are an example. The boxes are extremely heavy and the moon cakes are very small. So I think you should have a way to reduce packaging. And also you should also support the environmental organization so as to change our consumption behavior. So I think the producer should bear their responsibility. If I give away a gift, you should think about you should be paying for the charging. If you can pay for the charge, then it's okay. But now you give me the gift and I have to pay for the charge for the excessive packaging. So this is not a good way. Well, actually, for my own office, we have to discard a lot of these excessive packaging as rubbish. So I think for waste reduction, we should be focusing more on that. That should be the first move. And then we follow up with the waste charging. Then the waste charging will not be a big thing. My last question. The administration is saying that you're keeping an open mind, but I think you should have a very decisive decision by June as to whether you're really to roll out the scheme or you're going to defer the scheme, because the citizens have to make themselves ready. Don't give them an uncertainty. If you're coming back to us in June, please give us a decisive decision then. If you want to defer it to December, then you can say so. But I want to reiterate, I hope that you will succeed, and I hope that you would carry on with your team. Work hard. Thank you, Chair.
You've made full use of your time, so I will consider Mr. Ho's speech a comment. Ms. Carmen Khan, Mr. Tony Chair and I are concerned about the purpose of the demonstration scheme. We want the Secretary to clarify the purpose of the demonstration scheme. Community is saying that the Bureau is actually trying to scrap the MSW charging scheme by discovering problems during the demonstration scheme. I think that all members here want to see the MSW charging scheme implemented. That's my first question. Second, for the 14 premises covered by the demonstration scheme, will you consider, say on the 1st of May, as free designated bags will be distributed to the PRH estates and 3 new buildings? Can we engage these PRH estates and the 3 new buildings in the demonstration scheme? I think that by extending or expanding the scope, the demonstration scheme can be more effective. Thank you, Secretary. Thank you for your comment. We actually need to promote recycling and reduce waste in Hong Kong. As I mentioned time and again, that the government is actually very determined in implementing the MSW charging scheme. We've heard views and concerns. Some people understand very well the scheme, but they still have concern. That is why we roll out this demonstration scheme. As you may have noticed in the paper, we cover not just government buildings that represent office buildings, along with other kinds of premises. We want to look at the actual situation or problems that may arise in the implementation of the scheme. As mentioned, we have 2,000 Green Net community facilities, and we have recycling facilities at some 2,000 housing estates. We cannot foresee problems that may arise during the implementation of the MSW charging scheme. We actually have to look at the problems that may arise and listen to the feedback of the participants of the scheme before we actually implement the MSW charging. Some members ask the administration to let people know about our decision. So as mentioned, we will report the results of the demonstration scheme at the panel meeting in May or June. We will definitely implement the scheme, but we have to keep an open mind. Chairman, so the government is determined to implement the scheme, and the administration will talk about the implementation timetable of the MSW charging in May or June when they report to the panel about the results of the demonstration scheme. Yes, Ms. Doreen Kong, thank you. I'm not a member of the panel, so thank you for giving me this time. I represent some grassroots members of the public. I would like to say a few words. Secretary, there is heavy financial burden on the grassroots families. I know that the Secretary is determined to implement the MSW charging scheme, but I hope that you can learn about the challenges faced by grassroots families. I think that we have to strike a balance between the affordability of the people and waste reduction. Second, Secretary, as mentioned by some radio hosts, the demonstration scheme is not representative enough. The premises of the Environment and Ecology Bureau is not covered. Why is it so hard to engage participants for the demonstration scheme? What are the challenges that you're facing? Finally, I know that the Secretary has worked very hard on the promotion and publicity of the scheme. I have put some 30 questions earlier. I know that you will address those questions, but I think that the administration should step up communication with the community and actually listen to their views. Secretary, thank you, Ms. Doreen Kong, for your comment. And well, we actually attach great importance to the views of the people. That is why I have listened to different organizations and people through attending different activities and events. You ask if it's difficult for us to engage people to participate in the demonstration scheme. That's actually not the case. The reason why we have only included such a small number of premises is that upon discussion, we think that we should have a smaller scale, a demonstration scheme, and that's our decision. Initially, we had a long list of premises under the demonstration scheme. The reason why we cover only so few premises in the scheme is that we don't just want to solve the technical issues involved. We actually want to examine the problems that may arise and know more about the difficulties faced by the people during the implementation of the scheme. And that is why the scale of the scheme is smaller. We will have a dedicated team to be responsible for the scheme, and they will conduct surveys and ask the participants about their views and the difficulties that they face when they recycle waste. And we think that having a shorter list of premises is a more focused way for us to carry out the scheme. Some people ask why the central government offices is not listed under the demonstration scheme. Actually, for the CGO, there will be a vehicle, a truck, that will collect all the waste for weighing before they are transferred to the landfills or other facilities. So we are not using actually designated bags or any plastic bags for waste disposal at the central government offices. Thank you, Secretary. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, Chairman. MSW charging scheme. On the 1st of April, there will be a demonstration scheme, and the charging scheme will be implemented on the 1st of August 2024. So that people can get better prepared for the scheme. There is still just one way to go before we implement the demonstration scheme. I would like to ask about your education effort. According to paragraph 11 of the paper, you mentioned that in August last year, green outreach of the EPD have been conducting promotion activities and providing on-site demonstrations. A lot of families in Hong Kong actually hire foreign domestic helpers. As at May 2023, there are some 330,000 foreign domestic helpers in Hong Kong. Apart from handing out pamphlets to foreign domestic helpers, will the Green Reach or Green Outreach organize events or seminars for foreign domestic helpers so that they can better understand the operation of the charging scheme so that we can reduce waste effectively? Thank you. Secretary. We do have relevant plans in this regard. Perhaps I will ask the director to supplement. Foreign domestic helpers actually process waste for a lot of households in Hong Kong. Green Outreach actually work with a lot of foreign domestic helper organizations in Hong Kong. We have Green Foreign Domestic Helper Outreach that is responsible for educating foreign domestic helpers. These foreign domestic helpers will be helping their peers, and we have organized 5 promotional events attracting some 2,500 participants on different occasions and different locations. For example, at Green at community facilities, we have information to be disseminated to foreign domestic helpers. And we also have some infographics for them. If foreign domestic helpers are unable to make use of our mobile application, our colleagues on site will actually help the foreign domestic helpers use the facilities in our Green at community stations. Regarding the information of the MSW charging scheme, we have translated it into 7 different languages to facilitate their understanding. We have organized activities to brief foreign domestic helpers about the scheme. Thank you. Next, Mr. Gary Chang. Thank you. I agree with what Mr. Stephen Ho said. I think that most of us want the MSW charging scheme to be implemented very smoothly. We are faced with a number of challenges. We want to change the habits of people, and I think that it takes time. I don't think that people's habits will change immediately starting from the 1st of August 2024. Some people have this misunderstanding that the world would change on the 1st of August, but actually I think that the change will happen progressively. At the end of the day, there still will be people who will not be recycling at all. But it seems that this message is not very clear, and people are focused on the penalty and the enforcement. I hope that the administration can consider filling this gap in regarding the idea. Regarding the green dollar application, there are some feedback. Mostly families recycle their waste as a unit and they gather green dollars. But with the current design of the app, family members cannot share a single account. According to the application, people can only accumulate green dollars by scanning the QR code. I think that this is not very user-friendly. I think that a member of a single family can log on to, should be able to log on to the single account and look at the green dollars that have been accumulated. We should not ask them to scan the QR code again and again.
只有回收點嘅位置啊。
Another point is that there is lack of information or guidance or explanation as to which items can be recycled. So for some households who just try to recycle things, it is not easy for them because they have to go back to the EPD thematic website for the information. So maybe you can include the information on the Green Dollar mobile app as well. I also noticed from the paper that there will be a reward scheme so that they can use the points to redeem designated bags. So what will be the ratio for the redemption of designated bags? I'm thinking that for a general household, if they are more hardworking and try to recycle more, then maybe they don't need to buy designated bags and they can try to redeem designated bags through the green dollars. Secretary. Well, thank you, Mr. Zhang. As to how we can improve the Green Community Scheme. For the Green Dollars Electronic Participation Incentive Scheme, we're trying to improve it from time to time. We will take into account the points that you've just raised. You suggest that we can use the green dollar points for redemption of gifts and we can be more relaxed so that if people are more hardworking, they can just redeem the bags and do not need to buy the bags. So we will try to look into that because we want people to dump less and save more and recycle more as well. Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Krang. Well, we have already used up the time for this for this item, so we will not have another round of questions for members. Thank you, Chairman. Well, we hear that the Secretary is determined to roll out the MSW charging scheme, and we welcome that. I think we are actually lagging behind our neighboring cities by some 2 decades. Hong Kong is most backwards in terms of MSW charging, and I think we have taken into account the experience of the neighboring countries. I think we do agree that this is a policy which affects everyone in Hong Kong. This is a very important policy, and we try to change people's behavior. So this is a major task. So we are anxious to do this, but we want a soft landing. So I think the demonstration scheme is a good move. It would allow the administration to consolidate experience. But I think this is not acquiring knowledge. We are trying to change people's behavior and habits. So we do hope that all citizens would take part and give their views. So the key is that we want to roll out the scheme by the 1st of August. And I think during the Bills Committee, the administration has said that there will be a phasing-in period for 6 months. I think the phasing-in period is very useful. If we want all citizens in Hong Kong to participate, can we have all citizens in Hong Kong to try the charging scheme during the initial 3 months of the phasing-in period? This is a long-term policy, and I think we can wait for a few months. Let's just give everyone a free designated bags so that everyone will participate in the scheme and we can consolidate experience of everyone in Hong Kong. We are actually looking at a sustainable scheme. We want the coming generations and future generations to acquire the same waste disposal habit. Well, I think we generally have the will to reduce waste, but the question is how we can encourage everyone to put into practice and work harder on this front. So let's give everyone an opportunity to try out the scheme, everyone in Hong Kong to do it together. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Kwok, for your suggestion. For the original planning is that during the implementation of the scheme, the first 6 months will be a phasing-in period. And we would give everyone in Hong Kong to try to adapt to the MSW charging scheme. And during the 6 months, we will not have enforcement actions. We will try to step up public education and provide more support for the citizens so that we can learn from each other. So we also want to see if there are problems or issues that we have not thought about before. So if the whole of Hong Kong try to do it together, we can gather new experience and may encounter some new problems. So Mr. Kwok suggested that maybe during the phasing-in period, we try to distribute more designated bags for free. We will try to look at the results of the demonstration scheme first, and then we'll see how we can take the next move. So thank you, Secretary, for considering this. I hope that we can all work together on this. Next, Ms. Elizabeth Quartz. Thank you, Chairman. I understand that the administration has been doing a lot to promote public education and publicity ad. The DAB has been working together with the Bureau to try to introduce the scheme to the citizens, but we have faced a lot of difficulties. And I think everyone hopes that the demonstration scheme will give us some experience as the implementation of the scheme in practice. Now we only have 14 premises covered by the demonstration scheme, and a lot of people think that it is too few and may not be very representative. One of the questions that we always encounter is that for some of the multi-story buildings, they have rubbish tubes. So how are you going to handle that? So for the 14 premises, do you have these multi-story buildings with such rubbish tubes? So this is an operational issue. Well, a lot of the owners corporations and PMC have asked if someone tried to throw a rubbish from a very high story of the building, or if the bag has broken up and the rubbish is over the place, so whose responsibility will be that? So all these are very practical operational issues, so please look into them. And also, I see that the rural villages are not included in the demonstration scheme. They will be covered by the charging scheme in future. So will you consider including some villages as well, as to see how they can handle their waste? What if they just throw their rubbish around? There is fly tipping. How are you going to handle that? A lot of citizens are support of environmental issues, but they think that the recycle bins are not sufficient. And for those with the smart food waste recycling bins, they say they get full already and they cannot put their food waste there. So how are you going to collect the food waste from these smart recycling bins more frequently? Because they say that it is very frustrated. They bring the food refuse down, the food waste down, but the bin is already full. For the 3 new buildings, we have received a lot of complaints. You can see that Ms. Sari Lee has written to this panel, and she's very concerned about the situation of the 3 new buildings. I see that there are 3 new buildings under the demonstration scheme, so we would like to see how they would perform under the scheme? Well, some of the grassroots have told me that population in Hong Kong is aging, so the elderly have to use diapers. Young children also have to use diapers, and they have a lot of expenses to cover. And also, how are they going to dispose of their diapers? They cannot afford the MSW charge. So what can they do? Also, one bag for dual use. I've been trying very hard to explain to people that when you go to the supermarket in future, you don't need to buy one more bag. But how can we ensure that these shopping outlets would cooperate? We see that for some cities, they have to put in legislation for that. So, Secretary, please be concise. If you cannot take all the questions, please give us written response after the meeting. Yes, we'll try to give a written response after the meeting. Just very simple. For the one bag for dual use, about 90% of the major supermarket chains have said that they will participate in the scheme and provide one bag for dual use service. You have pointed out a lot of questions. I think for the next stage, we have to look into them and we have to think about how to roll out the scheme when we gather information from the demonstration scheme. So that will be the staging for our next stage. Thank you. Lastly, myself, I have a few questions. First of all, I would like to thank the Secretary for working very hard to attend a lot of the briefings and sessions in the community, and you also put in place a demonstration scheme. But the list of premises covered by the scheme is not very big. I think back in 2014, we have some scheme. We have included some 7 housing estates with over 100,000 households. But now for the demonstration scheme, you only cover 1,000 households. Of course, you just told us that you want to be serious about it and you want to be more focused. But if there are other housing estates who want to test out themselves, would you consider incorporating them into the demonstration scheme? Well, for the government buildings, say like the Tamer, can you include that as well? Well, I think after the demonstration scheme, you will consolidate experience and you will decide on the next step. This is a very pragmatic approach. I support that. So you are not trying to put yourself in a straitjacket. I think also the supporting facilities are very important. So in terms of strategy, if you can roll out the scheme as scheduled, that will be very nice. But if there are more problems than anticipated, what would be your options? Would you try to defer implementation of the charging scheme? Or would you implement the scheme by phases? For example, like the plastic bag, the shopping plastic bags, the charging, we also do it by phases. From 2029, you started the scheme and implemented in several phases. It is only until 2022 that you have sort of enhanced the scheme. So you have taken over 1 decade. But now the charging scheme covers voluminous waste, different scenarios, food waste, and different stakeholders. So I'm really worried about the implementation. So Secretary, would you consider, apart from deferring the implementation date, so that people can change their habits gradually? Well, thank you, panel chair. When we have the internal discussions, we have taken into account the views collecting from various quarters. Well, for the MSW charging scheme, it is implemented under a legal framework. So under this legislative framework, there is a limit as to how much maneuvering we can have. So I'm not saying that because of the legislative framework, we would implement it irrespective of anything that happens. That's why we want to have a demonstration scheme, smaller scale but more in-depth, because we want to really see what are the challenges and the practical difficulties and try to address them. So we want to see how we need to refine our implementation details and which areas need to be adjusted, or maybe we need some more technical inputs. But if there are major changes, then I think we would also keep an open mind as to how we would proceed. So definitely we'll look into the outcome of the demonstration scheme and refine our implementation strategy. So panel chair, so the points that you have just raised will be taken into consideration as well.
今日呢一個議程呢，
So that concludes our agenda item number 3. Now we move on to enhancing capability of forecasting and coping with extreme weather. Would the administration please come in?
咁啊出席
With us today are, well, because there are quite a number of government officials, I will only read out some of them. We have Dr. Chen Pak-wai, Director of the Hong Kong Observatory, Ms. Diane Wong, Undersecretary for Environment and Ecology, Mr. Wang Junfei, Commissioner for Climate Change, and we also have from the colleagues from the Development Bureau, Civil Engineering Development Department, Security Bureau, Drainage Services Department, Highways Department, and Home Affairs Department. Undersecretary, please. I know that members have already pressed the button before the Undersecretary and her team have taken their seat. I will read out the order first. Mr. Stephen Ho, Mr. Robert Lee, Mr. Chan Xiu-hong, Deputy Chairman, Mr. Kenneth Lau, Mr. Gary Cheng, Mr. Michael TIEN, and Mr. Kwok Wai Keun. Undersecretary, over to you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. We will make use of PowerPoint slides to walk members through our work on enhancing capabilities in meteorological forecasting and coping with extreme weather. Chapter 5 of the Hong Kong's Climate Action 2050 says to combat climate change effectively, apart from implementing ambitious decarbonization strategies, we'll also need to adopt a comprehensive strategy on climate change adaptation and resilience to protect the life, health, and property of the people from extreme weather and strengthen the resilience of the community. Today, we are here to report on the latest progress of the government's major measures for enhancing the capabilities in meteorological forecasting and coping with extreme weather in order to continuously strengthen Hong Kong's overall climate resilience. According to the announcement from the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, 2023 was the hottest year on record. The average temperature compared to 1850s to 1990s, the average temperature is about 1.5 degrees Celsius higher. Global warming and extreme weather events caused by climate change have been intensifying. Like other cities, Hong Kong is facing problems such as rising temperature and more frequent extreme weather events. Recently, Hong Kong has been subject to frequent extreme weather events, including from June to August 2023, it was the hottest summer on record, and yesterday we recorded a highest temperature of 31.5 degrees Celsius. It is the hottest day since ours having a record in the 1800s. We participate in a lot of climate change organizations so that we can get hold of the latest development of relevant climate change policies and techniques. According to the 6th assessment report published by the IPCC, that is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the Hong Kong Observatory, Hong Kong O, updated its projections for future temperature, rainfall, and mean sea level in Hong Kong under different greenhouse gas emission scenarios in end 2021. Relevant government departments have conducted impact assessment and review to formulate policy and schemes to enhance the adaptation of the city and capability of resilience. We are determined to minimize the impact brought about by the climate change, and we will accord top priority to the protection of the life, health, and property of the people. Now, I will invite representatives from different departments in Bureau to talk about the areas under their purview. After that, we will be happy to take questions from members. I will first invite the colleagues from the Hong Kong Observatory to talk about their work. Thank you. Regarding strengthening weather forecast, in terms of hardware, we continue to update our instruments and keep up with the international level in terms of weather forecast. We have a very advanced radar that can scan very quickly the weather. That is very conducive to the monitoring of waterspouts, hail, and squalls caused by intense thunderstorms. At Lantau, we have put in place a pilot spot for this advanced radar, and hopefully we will expand its coverage gradually. As reported in a number of newspapers, the Taimoshan weather radar has been replaced in March this year, and the new radar will be put into service very soon. And that will be used to monitor various types of severe weather, including thunderstorms, rainstorms, and tropical cyclones. In terms of software, we will be putting in place a rainstorm nowcasting system that is readily available on the mobile applications that we have, and we will make use of artificial intelligence as well. AI is useful for nowcasting and forecasting weather for the upcoming weeks or 9 months. And we also have launched the Pangu weather model weather forecast maps on our website and mobile application. And we will continue to make use of AI to generate products and services to be made available on our website and mobile application. I will elaborate on the publicity and education, but let me make one point. We will strengthen our information dissemination under adverse weather. During rainy season, if we have to issue black rainstorm warning, we will ask our senior scientific officer to conduct briefing every 6 hours. And we have also launched a very hot weather warning system. Next slide, please. Colleagues from the CEDD, please. To combat extreme weather and climate change, we have established a climate change working group on infrastructure, including engineering and non-engineering departments. Through this working group, different departments update the design standards of infrastructure under their purview, and they have also kickstarted a study review to strengthen our critical infrastructure. We are working with the NGOs and a number of utility undertakers to facilitate the enhancement of the overall infrastructure resilience. Climate change will bring about extreme weather events, including increase of rain load, and that will pose extra loading on the existing storm water drainage system. Considering Hong Kong's topographical features, the Drainage Services Department DSD has been adopting a multi-pronged approach, including storm water interception at upstream, flood storage at midstream, and drainage improvement at downstream to enhance the flood protection capability or capacity across the territory. Over the year, more than 90 drainage improvement projects were completed and have been in operation, including 4 drainage tunnels at the Hong Kong Island West, Lai Chi Kok, Sheung Wan, and Kai Tak. 5 storm water storage schemes at Tai Hang Tung, Sheung Wan, Happy Valley, Ong Shao Road, and Anderson Road. Over 100 kilometers of river training works in the new territories, and 27 village flood protection schemes at low-lying islands or low-lying villages in order to cope with extreme weather such as typhoon and heavy rains. To further enhance the flood prevention and resilience of the city, We are currently implementing 11 stormwater drainage improvement projects, including drainage improvement works in Chim Sa Tsui and Yunlong Barrage Scheme. In addition, the SD will take forward 7 drainage improvement projects in 2024, including Wan Tai Sin, Hong Kong Island East, and other areas hit by severe flooding before. The DSD will continue to review the drainage master plans for various districts to assess the flooding risk across the territory and to allocate resources for taking forward drainage improvement works. In addition, we actively make use of IT innovative technologies in drainage works. For example, we developed the hydrometric information system. Remote sensors were installed at various locations to collect real-time data on water level at rivers or channels, rainfall, and tide levels in order to facilitate the relevant staff to monitor the conditions of relevant rivers or channel and rainfall in real time through smartphone and computer to take appropriate emergency responses swiftly. Apart from that, we also adopt new technology, including the use of river desalting robots and remotely operated pipeline inspection robots to assist in the maintenance works to enhance the work efficiency. Climate change is a challenge across the globe. Hong Kong needs a forward-looking strategy. We are implementing a strategy planning study on flood management against sea level rise and extreme rainfall. The study will make reference to the experience and advice of other cities and professional disciplines in formulating long-term flood prevention strategy for the territory. It is expected that the study will be completed in 2024. Next slide, please. Every year, prior to Next slide, please. Prior to the rainy season, Highways Department asked the contractors to inspect roads with high-risk drainage facilities of structures and pumping facilities in road tunnels or pedestrian subways. We work with relevant government departments to ensure that they are free from blockage. And we also step up inspection and clearance works of the outfalls and drains of public roads. We have completed a review of the resilience of 75 critical road infrastructures. We have also come up with a plan and relevant countermeasures, which is expected to be completed in the second quarter of 2024, with the implementation works expected to commence from 2025 onwards in phases. And we are now conducting technical assessment. Between 2024 and 2025, we will install flood warning systems for some pedestrian subways along Shingmun River in Shatin, Lam Chun River in Tai Po, and Tai Po River in phases. And we will be installing some 10 of them. As you can see on the slide, when the water level go up to about 100 to 200 meters or millimeters, there will be signals warning pedestrians against entering the pedestrian subway. Together with our contractors, we have conducted a drill on the 17th of March. We made use of patrol vehicles with GPS, inspect roads across the territory so that the Highways Department and the contractors can be more familiar with the emergency responses that are to be taken during adverse weather. To enhance the resilience in coping with landslides, the CEDD carry out a number of works, including inspection and preventive maintenance for government slopes. For private owners of the slopes, we ask them to fulfill their duties to maintain their slopes, and we also make sure that the private development projects will have the slope safety ensured. We also will adopt or implement the landslip prevention and mitigation program. And we also ask the experts to advise the government on the technical aspects of slope management. Next slide, please. To combat extreme weather events, we will put in place forward-looking strategy, including enhancing the prevailing slope engineering design standard and preventive measures, and to support slope safety and natural hillside risk management through the application of innovation and technology, for example, remote sensing technology. And we will also make use of AI, big data, and other technologies to improve our landslide risk assessment capabilities. And we will also conduct systematic investigations and studies on major landslide incidents triggered by extreme rainstorms and devising focused measures of landslide mitigation for more natural hillsides. We have completed a coastal hazard study in 2021 when we have identified 26 coastal low-lying or windy residential areas with high risk for the formulation of improvement works and management measures to safeguard public safety. The improvement work have been progressively taken forward with 6 areas already completed and 11 areas currently in progress. The remaining areas are being planned and designed in terms of the improvement work, and we expect that all the improvement works will be completed in an orderly manner by 2027. To address the potential risk associated with ongoing sea level rise and change in storm surges, we commenced a study on shoreline management plan. We will offer guidelines on planning and implementing urban coastal development and protection measures and formulate the related long-term strategies and preventive measures. We expect that the study will be completed in 2024.
Next slide, please. Well, during inclement weather, especially when the Hong Kong Observatory has hoisted the black rain signal or typhoon number X, the Security Bureau will trigger the contingency plan for natural disasters. And if necessary, we will try to coordinate the work of the relevant government departments and bureaus, and also report the latest situation to our principal officials to ensure safety of our citizens' life and properties. When super typhoons hit us or natural disasters, then the Chief Secretary will convene an interdepartmental steering committee comprising senior officials for the provision of emergency work. The 3 purposes of setting up the steering committee is to ensure that during the different stages, there will be a high-level steering group providing the necessary steer, and also to consolidate, coordinate the emergency work of the various departments and bureaus. And also we try to be as quickly as practicable to help our citizens. And also for the emergency work, we'll try to set the priority and to ensure that resources are put to good use so that the normal daily life of the community can resume as quickly as possible. For the Home Affairs Department, during inclement weather, we will also carry out a lot of work. Well, before the typhoon season, we will try to target at the low-lying areas or more prone to flooding. And we will liaise with the relevant departments and the owners' corporations and the PMCs to try to help evacuate the citizens, and also the piling of sandbags. When typhoon number 8 or higher is hoisted, we will arrange for the relevant government departments and contractors to inspect flooding black spots and also to clear the blocked drains. Also, through our district network, we will remind our residents to stay alert. Well, during a tropical cyclone, the HAD's Emergency Coordination Center, which operates round the clock, will be triggered and activated, and we will provide assistance to the citizens as needed. And also, the various district offices would open temporary shelters. And we will arrange for the care teams and the volunteers during the opening of the typhoon shelter to render assistance to the citizens. Next slide. On public education, for the last weekend, we have an open day. We will do that annually, and we will try to get in touch with our citizens to give them information on how to cope with extreme weather. On the website, we will also have some training courses. And every week, we will try to produce the cool mat stuff videos and give people information on the latest information. We will also visit schools to conduct briefings, and through the social media, we will disseminate information. And then also we have virtual tours on our website so that they can see our facilities. I would also like to mention that from time to time, we have the voting for the naming of the typhoons. Next slide. For the DSD, we have been making use of TV APIs on the radio and television and publications. Also, we will open up the drainage facilities for the citizens. We also have outreach talks to schools so that the citizens can be aware of the work of the Drainage Services Department and also the river revitalization work. For CEDD, we have various channels to promote education on our work. Thank you. Well, we have a detailed briefing from a number of departments. So now it is time for members to raise questions. So 4 minutes each. Mr. Stephen Ho first. Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the information stated in the various PowerPoints just now, but a lot of the issues have not been covered. During the past few years, flooding has been an issue for us. It is very serious, especially in the rural areas. I know that for Mr. Kenneth Lau, we've been working for the rural areas, and fly tipping is a very serious problem for them, but the government isn't doing much on that. On the 9th of September 2023, there is a very heavy rain. That is a once in a 500-year heavy rain. And we noticed that one river is 2 meters wide and 3 meters in depth. And it is a river that has been filled. But the government has visited the site and said that we cannot prove that they have cleared up they have filled the river natural course, and now they have put in another river course. But now, because of this, there is a serious flooding for the past 2 or 3 years. There is a pig farm there. I think it is under the charge of the Deputy Secretary. So you have used a lot of river training robots, but we have reported about illegal dumping, but you are not clearing them. But even in Taokuling right now, the government has a 2-meter deep ditch, but then the resident nearby is still using the illegal training river. So you are not giving compensation to our pig farmers. The areas affected by the flood has not been taken into account. So that means the legislation is not comprehensive enough. Although I allow you to use robots to clear up the rivers, but there is still illegal dumping. So I want to say it is very helpless for the rural areas. So I would like to thank Mr. Kenneth Lau and Mr. Kwok. The three of us work together, but we cannot help the pig farmer. So the elder brother of the pig farmer tried to pass on the business to his younger brother, but he still cannot continue to operate the pig farm because of flooding. So how are you going to tackle illegal land filling? So will you put into new legislation to tackle this? How are you going to ensure that there will be no further flooding? You have already got a ditch of 2 meters deep, but there is still flooding despite that. Well, I'll try to tackle the questions from 2 aspects. Maybe DSD can supplement. On the case that you have mentioned, we have actually conducted a site visit in the North District. Well, this is a rainy season, so we have to help the operator of the pig farmer. So DSD has taken the initiative to provide assistance to the operator, like providing him with sandbags to prevent flooding. But of course, Mr. Ho is concerned that for the neighboring site, it is a private operation. So for that private piece of land, they have land filling to raise the level of the land. So maybe DSD can supplement. They have tried to get in touch with the landowner. And please tell us a bit about the work enforcement that you've taken. Well, on this particular case, there is flooding. So our department conduct a site visit immediately, and to provide assistance, we provided sandbags to the pig farm operator. Well, Chair, I do not need him to answer the question. The point is, it is an illegal land filling case. They try to fill the land by even 2 meters higher. So we have the flooding because of the illegal land filling. And now after the government intervenes, there is a second flooding as well. So because they have not reinstated the piece of land as it was before, so giving them sandbag is useless. DSD, can you supplement? We have actually tried to provide another drainage so that the stormwater can be drained away through that. Also, we have been in touch with the Lands Department and the Planning Department, and we understand that they are taking illegal enforcement action. So maybe you can follow up on this case with Mr. Ho separately. Mr. Robert Lee? Well, thank you, Chairman. I would like to thank the bureaus and the departments for giving us a report on enhancing the capabilities in meteorological forecasting and coping with extreme weather. I think it is a question of risk management, and it is very important. So from the financial sector's point of view, I would like to make 2 suggestions, and I have some questions. First, the Hong Kong Observatory will announce the number of typhoons to be hoisted and the rain warning. And for the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, we now have existing procedures. But in terms of the timing, it is not very convenient. At times, some of the companies would have to put in place arrangements. Their staff may have left the office. If you can give us early warning, that will be nice. I know you have established procedures and you have different considerations, but please don't wait until the last minute when everyone has already went back to office and then you make the announcement. That is not the best way or more convenient way. Also, on the accuracy of the forecast. Well, at times, some colleagues have stayed home or they have returned to office. But then the warning is very serious or the timing signal is very high. But the people's impression is that the weather isn't that bad. So they will think that they have wasted a day. So would it be possible? I know despite you have established procedures and you have a scientific findings and backup, but how can you sort of enhance the accuracy of your forecast and also try to give out the forecast as soon as possible so it will be easier for the companies to make arrangements? Thank you, Chair. Well, of course, we want to give out the forecast as early as possible. We have received that request from time to time. During the last typhoon season, you can see that for the hoisting of the number 8 typhoon signal, we try to give advance notice and give a clear message. But on different occasions, I have explained that we have to base on scientific findings and also we have to take into account public safety. If we announce it too early, then we would affect the accuracy of the forecast. So we are aware of the citizens' wish. So where possible and where the science and technology allow, we will try to give an early warning as early as possible. On enhancing the accuracy of our forecast, we try to step up our hardware and software. And we try to follow the latest international equipment and the computation methods, and we try to enhance our forecast capability.
主席，
Next, Mr. Chan Xiu-hong, Deputy Chairman. Chairman, extreme weather events caused by climate change has been getting more common and serious. From late last year until today, we have experienced a rather hot winter. And last year, we experienced a torrential rain which resulted in a number of landslips. So I think that the administration does need to take measures to cope with the extreme weather events brought by the climate change. I have a few questions. In paragraph 9 of the paper, it says that Climate Change Working Group on Infrastructure has been established under CEDD, and they have conducted study review for about 350 government critical infrastructure. So how many critical infrastructures are in need of maintenance and repair imminently? Does that cover the 24 MTR stations, including Won Tai-sin stations that were subject to flooding last year? Because in the subcommittee on matters relating to railway meeting in February this year, the MTRCL said that they will put in place preventive measures for high-risk MTR stations. So I'm asking the administration what support measures and advice will be given to the MTRCL on such measures. From paragraph 15 to 18, the administration talk about the continuous enhancing resilience and coping with landslides. Because of the landslips resulted in the extreme weather condition and global or climate change, the roads in Shaoqi-wan and another district were subject to landslip, and they were disrupted. So did you foresee landslide happening at those two roads? Do you have any plans for improvement? If you do, please share with us. You foresee that there will be 5 to 8 typhoons in this year. So have you reviewed the safety level of the private slopes and natural slopes? Thank you. Perhaps the CEDG will take the question. Thank you. Regarding Mr. Chan's question, well, for the 350 government critical infrastructure, there are actually 3 criteria for us to determine if an infrastructure is critical. Well, the infrastructure have to be irreplaceable, and it has to be a territory-wide kind of facility, and the infrastructure will need a long time for recovery or repair after disruption. But I don't have the list of the critical infrastructures. Perhaps I can supplement after the meeting, if you don't mind. As for the landslide issue, perhaps I ask the CEDD to supplement. And my apologies, I would like to follow up on the definition of critical infrastructure, CI. For the Won Tai-sin MTR station incident last year, the disruption of the station actually disrupted the traffic of the entire district, and I think that you have to include it in the list of critical infrastructure. We note Mr. Chan's views, but actually CI include mostly government facilities. I don't have the full list. Perhaps I can talk to you after the meeting. What about the issue with landslides? Thank you for your question. The GEO is actually conducting a systematic investigation. We will look at the topography, hypometrics, and the pattern of rainfall at various roads to look at the trigger point and the reason for the landslips to happen. And we will see if there is similar slopes around the territory so that we can implement preventive measures to prevent landslips. What about Chaiwan Road and Yuheng Road? What is the reason for this landslip to happen there? That should be the last question. Well, because we're still investigating into them, we think that the reason for the landslip is that there is a special kind of topographical reasons. That is why it happened. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. We're having more and more extreme weather conditions. Like other cities over the world, Hong Kong is faced with the same problem. The government needs to protect the life and health and property of the people. So I definitely support the proposal. It is mentioned that the DSD will take forward 7 drainage improvement projects covering Wong Tai Sin and Hong Kong Island East, along with other areas hit by severe flooding before. So I would like to ask about the progress of these drainage improvement projects and when can they be completed. Last year, there was a black rainstorm warning hoisted because of Typhoon Sola, and there was flooding in Shuttlecock along with other districts in other areas in the North District. And the rivers and channels in the North Districts were unable to divert flood. And it seems that the flood storage pond and the stormwater storage facilities are more effective in preventing flooding. And will you put in place more of such facilities in the North District? The DSD will take the question. Regarding the 7 drainage improvement projects, we will start those projects within this year, and we will implement the projects in phases, and they will be completed between 3 to 5 years. For Shuttlecock, we are putting in place also a drainage improvement project as well. After the completion of the project, we think that the stormwater drainage capability or capacity will improve. Because of landslip, the drainage system will not be effective. But then I think that the storage tank is apparently more effective. So will you be creating more storage tank in the North District? In these 7 drainage improvement projects, there are storage tanks involved. For Shuttlecock, we will be installing a storage tank there as well. Thank you. Next, Mr. Kwok Wai Kan. Thank you, Chairman. I have a few questions. Last year, Typhoon Sola hit us and there was flooding in Chaiwan. There was not a flooding in Chaiwan initially, but there was flooding after the torrential rain came after Typhoon Sola. And a lot of the drainage tunnels were blocked, and that is why there was flooding. The frontline workers had a hard time unblocking the clogs. After the typhoon, we let our guards down, and then the drainage was blocked because of the torrential rain. Well, we have experienced a number of extreme weather events through the Hong Kong O's weather forecast. Should the Hong Kong O not communicate with the administration earlier so that we can have a longer lead time of the rainstorm warning signal for members of the public because there was such a short lead time last time and people had to wait a long time before they can get on a bus to return home. There was an earthquake in Lantau, and some residents in Lantau heard some noise. I don't think that comes from the earthquake, but the destabilizing of the stones at mountains. Will the administration see if there is any danger posed to the residents because of the earthquake? For the first question, I will ask the DSD to take that. For the next one, I will invite other colleagues to answer that. For after the torrential rain last year, we have implemented a number of improvement projects in Taiwan. Under the 7 drainage improvement projects, one of them involved Taiwan, and we will be implementing a number of works there. We will also be conducting minor works at the Taiwan Road roundabout. We will put in place pumping facilities and water inlets, and we will also put in place storage tanks along with other facilities. We will step up our capability against torrential rain. When we receive warning signals from the Hong Kong O, we immediately will engage contractors to send emergency response team to the Taiwan to look at the drainage there to see if there is any danger prior to the heavy rain coming. Thank you. What about the review of the land or the slopes? The CEDD will answer that question. During heavy rain, the CEDD worked with the Hong Kong O, and we have a landslip warning system. When the landslip signal is hoisted, the colleagues from the CEDD will station at the high-risk slopes to offer advice to see if we need to cordon off some parts of the road or evacuate some residents. Thank you. Regarding extreme weather events and the earthquake, Director of the Hong Kong Observatory, please. Thank you. I think that the member was talking about extreme events, and under those events, we will have an interdepartmental working group or steering committee meeting convened under extreme conditions. It's very difficult to predict torrential rain because it happens very suddenly, and that's even harder to predict than typhoons. Of course, we want to alert the steering committee as soon as possible. About the earthquake in Lantau, after the earthquake, we work with the CEDD to conduct a site visit at the place, and we ask the residents about the situation. We also investigated the site. We know that they heard some noise, and we think that it has to do with some stones maybe falling off. But that earthquake actually happens 600 kilometers away from us. We know that there are some fault lines, but it is not active, and there is low risk of serious earthquake happening in Hong Kong. Despite this, we have convened a meeting with the CEDD to see if we can conduct further study into these fault lines. Thank you. It's my turn. It seems that extreme weather events happen more and more common these days. it seems that we're having more and more one in a century kind of events. And I think that we do have to enhance our capabilities in coping with these extreme weather. We need to enhance forecasting. And I would like to applaud the administration for their follow-up action. And it's hard for us to see in other cities of the world that an MTR station can be reinstated after being flooded overnight. And I think that I have to commend the administration for that. All government departments have stepped up their effort to enhance their capabilities to cope with extreme weather. But I think that different districts should work together, and we need people to help one another. I know that we will have an emergency plan in collaboration with other cities in the Greater Bay Area so that we can formulate a system of emergency response to cope with extreme conditions. And I would like to ask about the progress. For the torrential rain last year, we noticed that there were flooding in the North New Territories. Actually, Shenzhen experienced the same thing, and they had to divert their water. I think that involves collaboration as well. So my question is, I think that, well, does the administration have any plan to work with other cities of the Greater Bay Area?
On the issues about forecast, I understand the Hong Kong Observatory has been exchanging the data with neighboring authorities. As regards cooperation, I will defer the question to Security Bureau. On the meteorological side, Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Shenzhen has been cooperating for many years. We try to build facilities together. We have exchanges for our personnel that is stepping up. As the chair has pointed out, weather knows no limit, so the neighboring cities will be experience the same weather events. So we have therefore stepped up collaboration with the neighboring cities like Guangzhou, Macau, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, etc. So for the major weather events that will affect the region, we will try to exchange information in advance. And then we also try to provide information to the public or warn each other. So we try to work with each other and share information. So for the different meteorological facilities, they may have different predictions. So we try to exchange information frequently, and we try to remind each other. Security Bureau, anything to add? Thank you, Chair. And as I have pointed out earlier, we try to make use of the emergency and capability together. Actually, back in 2008, we have already signed collaboration arrangements. The Secretary for Security noticed that we have not made use of the advantages of the Greater Bay Area. So that's why SB we have advocated that there should be an emergency action plan for the Greater Bay Area. We want to focus more. So if there is any one district within the GBA, if there is an emergency event and they need support from other cities, we'll try to see how we can work together and support them. So initially, we have already reached a framework agreement to sign a framework agreement. So for the 3 cities, we have already reached consensus, and we anticipate that within this year, we will try to sign this agreement in Hong Kong so as to take forward the action plan. I can share with you a bit more. Last September, Security Bureau has already has a site visit on an emergency action plan, and we have already had a meeting. Following this meeting, we have reached consensus. So next Tuesday, on the 2nd of April, for the security panel, our secretary will come forward to brief members on the collaboration for the Guangzhou, Macau, Hong Kong area, and the secretary will provide more details at the security panel meeting. Thank you, Chairman. I think it is very important to focus after the super typhoon and the torrential rain. We have been more effective in terms of recovery because we have actually activated all the contractors under the various departments like highways, DSD, water services department, etc. They all work in collaboration and try to take forward recovery work. So you can see that after one day, all the major roads have been reopened. So I think it is very important to get our focus right. If all the efforts in the GBA can be put together to address an issue, I think this is very important. If there are no further questions, I think we have completed discussion on this agenda item, and we move on. Item number 5. It is a proposed members' bill to establish the Hong Kong Institute of Qualified Environmental Professionals as a statutory body. Dr. Low Wai Kok has already provided a paper for us. I would like to now welcome the representatives from the Hong Kong IQEP and from the government to come forward. This bill will be put forward by Dr. Low Wai Kok as a private member's bill. So first of all, I would like to invite Dr. Low to brief us on the paper. Dr. Low will use a PowerPoint presentation for the purpose. So let's wait for the members and representatives from Hong Kong IQEP to take their seat. So today with us, we have the President and the Vice President of the Hong Kong IQEP and the councillors. We also have Ms. Diane Wong, Undersecretary for Environment and Ecology, Dr. Sam Choi, Director of EPD, People, Ms. Lillian Lam. Welcome. While you are trying to take your seats, I'll defer to Dr. Low. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank the Chairman for putting this private members' bill proposal as an agenda item for this meeting. I will try to give a brief introduction on this. Well, the dual carbon goals by our country, China, and also the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan 2050 has pointed out that before 2050 and before 2060, we will try to achieve carbon neutrality respectively. And we have the demand for professionals in this aspect. And also we have to establish an framework for these professionals, and also we have to advance the status of the relevant professional societies and also to build a talent pool. So there is a very clear demand from our society. Well, the Hong Kong IQEP was established in 2015 by a group of interested parties from the corporate sector, the private sector, and existing environmental professional institutions. They want to make use of the development in the GBA to take advantage of this development opportunity. And we want this to become a pillar industry for Hong Kong. Well, the vision of the Hong Kong IQEP is to develop Hong Kong as a center for excellence for developing qualified environmental professionals in the Pearl River Delta region. Also, we want to nurture cross-disciplinary environmental professionals. So the key members of the council is here, Mr. Wu, and the two vice presidents, Professor Lau, Dr. Peter Louis, and the president, Mr. Zheng. For the also have Dr. Zheng, who's helping us with the bill? Well, the honorary advisors include myself, Professor Christine Low, and Professor Lam Kin Chi, and the drafting for the bill. Mr. Professor Albert So is here. Although I am an honorary advisor of the Hong Kong IQEP, I do not have any pecuniary interest to declare. The Hong Kong IQEP focus on 6 environmental areas: environmental science, management and policy, air, noise, EIA and hazard assessment, waste and water. So there are 6 environmental areas that we focus on. We now have over 660 members from the environmental protection industry, and they support that we should have a register of suitably qualified environmental professionals in Hong Kong. With this ability, the Hong Kong IQEP has participated in a lot of the environmental protection work in Hong Kong and has made a lot of achievements in the past. For example, as stated in my paper, so I'll highlight some of them here. For example, for the Green Employment Scheme, we have introduced the Graduate Environmental Mentoring Scheme. So the IQEP's participation is very important in this. For the accreditation scheme, we encourage the education institutions to provide environmental degree programs, and also collaboration between academic and practicing environmental professionals. Also, we try to focus on sustainable development, and then we focus on ESG, environmental, social, and governance programs. For the professional status of the IQEP has been recognized by the government and by the industry. So this PowerPoint lists out that the Development Bureau has included the IQEP as one of the considerations for the Engineering and Associated Consultants Selection Board. And a lot of companies have pledged that they will try to support the qualified environmental professionals in the recruitment of their related positions and to encourage their staff members to pursue Hong Kong IQEP qualification. So we already have a recognized position by the sector. So we would now like to give the Hong Kong IQEP the status of an incorporated body. And there are several objectives. First, we want to provide a clear career path for our youngsters so that they can pursue a green and sustainable development. Also, we want to provide more high-qualified jobs. So this private members' bill aims to give the Hong Kong IQEP the status of an incorporated body, so it will be a legal entity with perpetual succession. And also it will be independent. So a lot of the professional institutions also have a similar legislation governing them. So we are trying to pursue a similar scheme for the Hong Kong IQEP. So it would be like the Institute of Engineers and the other professional institutions like Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors, etc. There are similar legislation for these respective associations. Dr. Low, sorry to interject. I want to extend this meeting by 15 minutes. If members agree, we'll do so. Thank you, Chair. I'll continue. So the Hong Kong IQEP has received support from the EEB and the EPD, and to ensure that the bill can be widely accepted, we have conducted a wide consultation, and we have received positive responses and support from them. So we have a lot of supporting letters, so you can refer to the annex to the paper for details. And these organizations include private and public organizations, think tanks, education academic institutions, etc., and tertiary institutions. So this private members' bill does not relate to public expenditure, political structure, and operation of the government. For the law drafting, the bill conforms to the rules of procedures of this council and also the general form of Hong Kong legislation. So the certificate has also been issued by the law draftsman of the Department of Justice for this bill. So that means this bill fulfills the relevant requirements. So for the paper produced by my office, we have attached the English and the Chinese version of the bill for members' reference. So there are 12 sections. So I hope that members will support this bill. If this bill can receive the member support, then I will go through the procedures, like we will try to obtain the approval from the President and also the approval of the Chief Executive, so that we can submit this private members' bill to the Legislative Council. Thank you.
除咗係
Thank you, Dr. Low. Apart from government officials, we have President and Vice President from the Hong Kong IQEP, including Mr. Freeman Cheung, President, Professor Alexis Lau, Vice President, Dr. Peter Louis, Vice President, Dr. Vincent Chen, Counselor, and Mr. Albert So, Lawyer. Mr. Chan Chiu Hong, Deputy Chairman. 4 minutes, including question and answer, please. Thank you. I would like to thank the representative of the Hong Kong IQEP for attending this meeting. The country is striving to achieve the dual carbon goals. For Hong Kong, we aim to achieve carbon neutrality before 2050. Our professionals on the environmental aspect is well known across the world, and they are drivers to our environmental development. That is why we have to improve the professional qualification structure by according a legal status to the Hong Kong IQEP and to train more young people to become professionals with relevant knowledge and skills and to enrich the environmental professional talent pool. For this reason, I support the members' bill to establish the Hong Kong IQEP as a statutory body. I would like to thank Dr. Low for his effort. As a result, we have this bill, and this is a step forward. I have a few questions. First, I would like to ask about page 4 of the PowerPoint slides. Just now, Dr. Low said that Hong Kong IQEP is to develop Hong Kong as a center of excellence for developing qualified environmental professions in the Pearl River Delta region. When the Hong Kong IQEP set out their vision, initially, perhaps they did not take into account the Greater Bay Area. I think that they should replace the Pearl River Delta region with Greater Bay Area to expand the scope of their work. Second, I would like to ask about page 10 of the PowerPoint slide. After the Hong Kong IQEP becomes a statutory body, I wonder if the government will set such a requirement when they hire environmental protections. It says in the paper that the EPD recognize the qualifications from Hong Kong IQEP professional members when they recruit staff. So for the qualification frameworks for hiring civil servants, after the Hong Kong IQEP have become a statutory body, will the government set professional member of Hong Kong IQEP as a criteria for application of civil servants, like what we do with Hong Kong IE, Hong Kong IA, and so on? Third question. I would like to ask if relevant international bodies actually recognize the Hong Kong IQEP so that we can invite qualified professionals overseas to join the Hong Kong IQEP. Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Low? Chairman, let me give a very brief response first. For the Pearl River Delta region, we're talking about the Pearl River Delta. It does not limit, well, it is not restricted to the 9 mainland cities on the Greater Bay Area, including Hong Kong and Macau. For the recognition of the qualifications by the government, Mr. Chen rightly pointed out the situation that we are facing. Although we are still not a statutory body yet, the EPD have already included our professional member under their engineering and associated consultants selection board. And it is recognized along with the corporate member of the Hong Kong IE. I'm glad to see that. After the bill is passed, we think that the environmental protection professionals will be more recognized by the public, and I think that more private companies and the government will be hiring professionals that have been recognized by the Hong Kong IQEP as well. Director of Environmental Protection, please. Thank you. Regarding the entrance requirements for EPD, we adopt a principle of fairness and justness to hire people to join our department. We don't have such a plan to include professional member of Hong Kong IQEP as a criteria for joining our department. But we will review the relevant requirements in due course. Thank you. President of the Hong Kong IQEP. Regarding your first question, actually the Pearl River Delta region that we mentioned actually include Greater Bay Area. When we first set out the vision, we didn't have this concept of the Greater Bay Area then. In 2022, we co-organized a youth summit together with young environmental professionals. And we will organize another summit this year in Guangzhou. We will be having a physical summit this year. In 2022, the youth summit was conducted online. My apologies, President. May I interrupt? I'm not asking the Hong Kong IQEP to change the wordings of Pearl River Delta region to Pan River Delta or Greater Bay Area. I'm just asking them to expand the scope of their work in the interest of time, can you talk about the recognition of the qualifications overseas? Well, for the mutual recognition mechanism, we will work on that progressively and gradually because we have to work on that to garner support from relevant professional institutions. We will keep in touch with them for future development. Thank you. Chairman, may I supplement? For Hong Kong IE, Hong Kong Institute of Engineers, they are already accorded a statutory body. As a result, members of the Hong Kong IE have a professional status both in Hong Kong and overseas. They have the status of authorized signatory overseas, and if the Hong Kong IQEP can achieve such a status, that will facilitate their collaboration with relevant professional institutions overseas. Although Hong Kong IQEP is not yet a statutory body, the examination that they organized have the support of the trade. It's difficult for candidates to pass the examination. Still, there were a lot of candidates taking the examination. That's because we want to turn Hong Kong IQEP into a statutory body, and that's the purpose of the bill. And we want to have the support of the legislative members. Thank you. I support the bill, and I hope that the Hong Kong IQEP can contribute to the environmental development of Hong Kong. Now you focus on 6 environmental areas. After the Hong Kong IQEP have become a statutory body, I hope that you can also work on areas such as new energy. There being no other questions, well, according to the papers submitted by Dr. Low, he targeted to introduce the bill in the second quarter of 2024. Regarding the proposal and the legislative timetable, any comments? As members have voiced their support, I hope that the legislative exercise can be conducted very smoothly. Last item, any other business? There being no other business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.